Welcome to your weekly space of self-indulgence, discovery, and community. I'm your host, Mariah, here to guide you through insights, tips, and stories. Thanks for joining me. Now let's get started. Welcome back to the Self-Indulgent Podcast. I'm your host, Mariah, and today I'm talking all about the mind, body, and spirit connection. And I am really excited to talk about this because I think that, one, being in a clinical psych PsyD program and on like this spiritual journey myself, I'm actually really excited to kind of break this down a little bit, talks about some of the basics and my understanding of things, and then also follow up with some tips, ideas, my experience, some of which you probably can relate to, especially if you are listening to this episode and it is of interest to you. First, I want to talk about, so we have, some people call it like the three brains: mind, body, spirit, soul. There's lots of research now on like how these things interact, but first I'm going to talk about each one individually. So first, the mind. This is the aspect of myself that I struggle with the most. It's for sure the one that gets me kind of caught up. It tricks me sometimes. I could tend to live in the mind a lot. So the mind is going to include like your thoughts, even maybe some feelings. Like when we think about that, you know, there are things that are going on in the brain that contribute to emotion. For me, it often is kind of the start of a lot of discomfort, and especially when like mind, body, and spirit are not interacting well together, not on the same page. There's misattunement, and I think a lot of that comes from not paying attention to that mind, body, and spirit connection and not being able to kind of monitor and see what's wrong, what's going on in the day-to-day, not paying attention to them. I think over time can really cause a lot of discomfort. And then we have body. I don't think people realize all the time how much your physical body is speaking to you, is trying to communicate with you. It's obvious when your mind is talking to you, right? Like you're in your head, you're letting, the thoughts are going crazy, but the body, for some people, it can kind of manifest in two ways. And what I'll see in therapy clients, especially in certain marginalized communities, there's a lot of cultures where they'll have physical manifestations, physical symptoms, stomach ache. Your gut is directly connected to your brain. So people will have stomach aches. People will come in and say like, I keep having pain in my chest, or their heart rate increases. They're not really sure what's wrong. And they're so serious. They're so for real that, you know, they're having all these physical symptoms and don't know what's wrong with them. Part of that is because there's not enough talk about mental health. They don't always understand that, like, the things you go through 100% are going to impact you regardless of kind of what the standard is, what you can and can't talk about in the household. There are people out there that have no choice but to tough it out. Therapy is not super accessible, right? So it's not in a lot of different communities. And so you have people toughing it out. Like that they have no other choice but to do that. And that's what generations before have done. They just go through it. And so a lot of the times there is a complete disconnect from thoughts and feelings. There is a complete, even I would say sometimes even spiritually, there's just such a disconnect that all that can feel is the physical manifestation of it. We'll see, you know, people will get night sweats, people, their nightmares, and like there are all these things that will start to happen when you're not paying attention or taking care of your mind and spirit. That's always really interesting. I've had clients where it's like, yeah, no, this is happening because of all the trauma that you just described to me, and people don't know. Like they're surviving. They're not thinking about it like that. Like, wow, okay, so it's actually causing all of that anxiety, depression, things that I'm not addressing or unaware of are actually causing physical symptoms. So that's why that mind, body, spirit connection, it's connected. They're doing the things. So when one is neglected or others are neglected, you can have super bad fallout in other areas. You hear a lot about people who have experienced high stress, trauma, anxiety at very high levels, having severe gut issues. That physical aspect of how these things can kind of show up in our bodies, and that's another thing you can pay attention to. That's like another talking point. It's another part of you that's trying to get your attention to say like something's not right. And then we have the spirit and the soul. It's like this essence within you, like this presence within you. What's interesting about the soul is that for me, I've recognized that it's either I'm in tuned with it and it feels good, or I'm disconnected from it and it doesn't feel good. There's not like my soul is working against me, or it's not like my soul is falling into like maladaptive behaviors or poor behaviors and habits the way that like my mind kind of can make that happen. The way I feel and my emotions can kind of create negative outcomes. I've noticed when it comes to soul and spirit, it's either I'm connected to it, I'm nurturing it, I'm trying to make it very present and there, and it feels good, or I'm just not. Like I don't feel it, I'm not looking for it, I'm not trying to connect to it. And so there's a piece of myself missing. It ends up feeling like very empty, numb. That's when I know that I'm not like in tuned with my soul and spirit. So I'm going to come back to the mind. The mind for me is the area that I struggle the most with. I think it is a piece of myself that, like I said before, can kind of tailspin different patterns, behaviors, feelings. I'm an overthinker. I'm such an overthinker. I often am thinking instead of doing. And that's like my biggest thing that I'm working on right now is the initiation of tasks, is getting things done, and to just do. And I think I've probably talked about just do it in other podcast episodes. It's so much harder than people think. And it's also very easy at the same time. I think that when you're tussling with your mind is extremely difficult, and feelings and emotion. If you're waiting for the feeling to come, or if you're waiting for it to feel like the right moment or that you're in the mood for it, that's very limiting. And I think that's the hardest curve for people. It's like, how do I give myself grace, rest, and balance, but also still show up for myself and do the things that I want to do and get things that I want done? Like there's a fine line, I think, between overdoing it and severely underdoing it. And I think that's the balance that I'm trying to find now. I literally will talk myself into not doing something. For example, yesterday it snowed, right? It was snowing, it was pretty bad, and I wanted to go to the gym. I was going to go to the gym in the evening, but it was snowing all day. So I was like, okay, I should do it in the morning. But first I had 2 doctor's appointments virtually. So I did those. Then I wanted to finish the episode that I was watching of the show I was watching in between the 2 appointments. I finished the episode, and then I sat there and I asked myself, should I go to the gym? Like, it is still snowing. I've already thought this out. Like, I've already done that. Why am I doing it again? Why am I sitting here waiting for like a right answer? Like, I'm debating myself about it, wasting time and energy because a specific answer isn't necessarily coming to me. Like, it's like I'm looking for the right answer when I already decided what I was going to do beforehand. And so that's something that I struggle with. It's like I'm constantly thinking about things instead of doing. And it's hard to like not live in your head, especially as somebody who wants to be really efficient and who is trying to prepare for everything. I mean, that's 100% a function of anxiety. It's coming from this need of control to be able to expect the unexpected. And at the end of the day, you can't expect the unexpected. That's why it's called the unexpected. But it's just, this is how I've programmed my brain to work. And it was probably really adaptive at a different time when there was like maybe more need for protection in myself. Like I've had really poor like working experiences, for example, with people. I think that it created this need to stay on top of things and to know how things are going to work so that I can protect myself and set up the best scenario and avoid who I need to avoid and all these things. Like, it's too much. It's too much. If you think about the amount of time you spend in a day thinking about doing things a lot. And I think that's why I have implemented a daily, hourly planner, because I gave myself time to think about it. If I have a planner and I'm planning hourly and all that stuff, I took time to plan already. Some of the week, some of the day. I already did it. So there is no reason why, unless I'm physically ill, right, and I can't do what I intended to do and I need to rework things or something came up, but take the time to rework it and move on. And so I think that has helped kind of get the clutter out of my mind. I also wanted to talk a little bit about moments when you don't feel good, you're not feeling right, you feel sad, you're fatigued, so body, mind, and you don't know what's wrong. So you're definitely not connected to spirit. I've oftentimes had a hard time, like, what's wrong? No, I know something's wrong. It's coming for me. Like, it's shutting down my ability to do things. I feel miserable. I am unable to now initiate anything or pull myself out of it. And part of that is because I don't know what's wrong. Like, I've had those moments. And I think that it's great to be able to recognize you're having that moment and to be able to say, wow, I really don't feel good. I don't know what's wrong. I actually don't really know why I'm upset right now. Like, or nothing happened. I just feel like shit. I don't feel good. That can speak to not really understanding different aspects of yourself. Some of us are really good with these external versions of ourselves. We're really good at the versions of ourselves that we present to people. So even if I was in that state, right? If I was feeling like shit, but I had to go to class and I went to class anyway. When I'm interacting with people, they're not going to be able to know. They're not going to be able to tell. My close friends might, because I'll probably present to them differently. But if I have to engage with a professor or somebody in class, I can tap into that external version of myself. And that's just who I'm going to show. When we're so busy and we have so many responsibilities, it's so easy to get used to tapping into that version of ourselves that the internal self is neglected, because you're not taking the time to recognize your internal self, who you are on the inside. And I think especially for people of color, if you are a person of color in a predominantly white space, you're code switching, you're dealing with microaggressions, like that's exhausting, and you have to wear a mask all day. So it becomes extremely difficult to tap into the internal version of yourself. Sometimes you want to anchor onto that external version of yourself because it's getting you through the day. It's getting you through the day, and you know you got to wake up and do it again the next day. So it's kind of just like we hold on, and then no wonder you have days where you're just like, when you finally have a break, you don't want to be bothered. You're irritated. You're very irritable. It's like, people say, yeah, I know who I am. Like, and you can describe that to somebody else, but I think that there's different versions of who I am. You have this internal version of yourself that it's really important to tap into and to understand and to recognize, to even just take the time to recognize, like, damn, this week was rough. Remember when she said that to you? Yeah, I remember when she said that to me. Like, even just giving yourself the minute to process the week. Like, no wonder you feel like crap. You were on go. Never breathed, never took a break, dealing with nonsense all week. And then you finally have a minute to breathe and you're irritated. Yes, you're irritated. 100%. You don't even get a chance to nourish yourself. That's where these elements of the soul are so important, because the more you nourish yourself and get connected to your internal sense of self and are paying attention to things that are working for you or not working for you, that make you feel good, that don't make you feel good, nourishment is going to make the soul connection, the spirit connection stronger. And so when you're doing things that feed your soul, you're really connecting into that internal self and what makes you feel good. Because I think when we have all these responsibilities, it's so easy to let that stuff go. And I just want to highlight the importance of knowing who you are outside of all of your responsibilities. It is so important. Connecting with that is the only way you're going to be able to nourish yourself, to feel good for yourself, to be able to learn how to engage in self-care practices. Ask yourself, what does connecting with myself actually look like? If you can't answer that question, you've probably just been running on go and just doing the things and because you have to. Okay, so let's talk about how to recognize and listen to your mind, body, and spirit. Anytime you feel an emotion or you're irritated or you feel anything strongly, I think is a good place to start, because if you're not used to paying attention to these like connections, then it's probably going to take a little bit more for you to be able to start to call it out. So, for example, I think that whether it's a good feeling, a bad feeling, I think when you're feeling something extremely strong, pay attention to it. Start thinking about it. Now that I've put the bug in your ear, it might start to happen where now when you feel something strong, you're like, oh, you're feeling really good right now. What are you doing? Who's around? Why do you feel really good right now? Start to tap into that thought process. Start to recognize it, write it down. That's a really good way to track the things that light you up, what fills your cup. There's an app called How We Feel. It's free. This will be a really easy way if you're feeling something really good, you're feeling something really bad. It'll start getting you in the habit of tracking how you feel. So it'll give you unpleasant, high energy, unpleasant, low energy, pleasant, high energy, pleasant, low energy. And so you pick one of the four, and then it'll expand into whatever one you picked. It'll give you a bunch of different description words. And I think I want to take a second to talk about the importance of describing what you're feeling and it being accurate. And my friend sent me this TikTok video of this girl who explained it so well. She explained it so well. And basically, we're talking about mislabeling and misidentifying feelings and why that can be harmful to you. It's not helping you at all. What do we mean by that? So for example, if you're in a relationship or your friend did something to you, maybe nothing crazy, and somebody tells you that you feel, oh, you must feel like betrayed. I think it's really important to, one, make sure your feelings are coming from you and not others. That's why I think it's really important to sit with yourself before you sit with somebody else about something that's happened, because they can create a whole nother spin and narrative that never would have crossed your mind. And sometimes that can be good. That can be good. Sometimes, depends on the friend. If you're having trouble, I think it also can be really good to talk to a friend who knows you, right? Or somebody who gets you and can play both sides. I think that's a really good way to tell kind of how in tuned you are in the friendship, is like if they're able to play not necessarily devil's advocate, but also give you more perspective and also comfort and validation at the same time. I think that's really important. But anyway, the word betrayed comes up and you're like, sit with it and be like, do I feel betrayed? That's not the right word. If you can say that, you're starting to get better at identifying your own feelings. It can be very hard though to call upon vocabulary that you may not even know there's a word that exists to describe exactly what you're feeling, right? Or it's just not coming to mind. So that can be very hard. And so that's why I really recommend this app, because the words are great for it. But let's say, because you can't think of anything else, you're like, you know what? Maybe I do feel betrayed. Maybe it is a betrayal, right? What does betrayal mean? Okay, so the definition that's coming up from the Oxford Dictionary right now: exposure to danger by treacherously giving information to an enemy, or the action of betraying. Why are you using the word in the definition? Come on, Oxford. It could also be, come on, Merriam-Webster, that's right, the violation of a person's trust or confidence or of a moral standard. So say if your friend went to this concert, it's an artist you both kind of like, but they went to this concert with somebody else. And you're like, wow, they didn't invite me. And so now you have this really feeling, and you talk about it with somebody else, the word betrayed comes up. Is it a betrayal? You don't know the circumstances in the moment, and you already questioned it in the first place, like, that's not really it. Do I feel betrayed? I mean, in reality, what the word really means is a breaking of trust, a violation of trust, a moral violation. There can be many reasons why that person went to a concert of an artist that you guys both kind of like with somebody else. Maybe that person invited them. Maybe they had a free ticket. Maybe so. Betrayed feels very strong of a word. If we run with that, we will start to act in ways and behave in ways that kind of identify with that feeling, with that thought, with that emotion. Now you've taken on this word betrayed that never really fit in the first place, but now you've sat in it, you've talked to somebody about it, you've kind of taken on that word when that was never the intention in the first place, and that wasn't really what you were feeling. So then you're maybe cold to this person. You should know what you did wrong. You're like, how could they ever? And you cut off the person, you kind of just lose contact. And that could have been a great friend. I think it just shows how things can spiral if we're not in tune with how we're feeling and we don't have the right words even to be able to describe it. That can be really hard for some people. And especially when you start talking to others about it before you've even had the chance to figure it out for yourself. Maybe the better word was, I'm feeling left out. Or maybe you're grieving the loss of an experience. Like, wow, like I really would have liked to experience that with you. That's a lot different than feeling betrayed, because that's telling you that you want to be around that person and you want to experience things around that person, but you have identified with betrayed and then you cut the person off. No, the whole reason you were upset in the first place was because you wanted to do that with them. That is why it is so important to be able to identify and connect with what you're feeling with and the actual true feeling. And this is why it's important to start keeping track. I really recommend that app. It'll let you plug in where you were when you were feeling it, who you were with when you were feeling it. It's just taking inventory of yourself. It's getting to know that internal self. And once you can do that, I think confidence can increase. I think trust in yourself can increase. And I just think overall, you're able to kind of then curate your life around you with the things that serve and fulfill you instead of leaving what is no longer serving you in your life. I think when we're not addressing these negative feelings or getting to the root of them or understanding the function of why we're feeling what we're feeling, we allow for a lot of mistreatment and we allow for a lot of nonsense, or we act in ways that is not of our character. We do things that we regret. We make mistakes. We're like, why did I do that? Because you were operating from a misattunement, a misalignment with what you thought was happening. That's my soapbox on being able to name your feelings. And I think it just these are ways to kind of listen and recognize the things that's going on with you. For some people, before a feeling, it's going to be something physical. So like the body, it could be, oh, my tummy hurts, or why is my heart racing? Okay. Who am I around? What am I doing right now? Right? So if I'm in class and the professor's trying to have a discussion with the class, and then you feel your heart increasing. Why is your heart increasing? You're in class, it's quiet, nobody's answering the professor. Yes, I'm talking from experience. You have thoughts and ideas, but nobody else is talking. That's starting to bother you, so you're nervous, I think. And now maybe it's the fear of being perceived. Maybe it's being outed because nobody else is responding. I think that's all good information to have, but all you have right now is your heart rate. All you know is that your heart rate is up, your breath has changed, and your mind is blank. It's really important to be able to tune into that and to get that information and to figure out what that's about. Because at the end of the day, do you want to participate in class or not? Do you want to have these conversations or not? Do you want to be enriched by a potential group conversation, or do you want to add, and do you want to learn? Like at the end of the day, you're paying to be in the class. So do you want to engage or not? And if the answer is yes, then it's important to be able to figure out what was stopping you, what was going on there. Or maybe you really just didn't want to participate and the awkward silence was killing you. But that's also good information. Why was that silence killing you? So I want to switch gears into a few more examples of how all three are kind of connected, how you can strengthen each. I've already kind of went over one, but because I can't help myself. I want to add a little bit more to the spirit, where usually when you're feeling really good, there's something there that's nourishing you and that's likely connected to the spirit because it's fulfilling to you. If you've ever had a sense of just like pure bliss, calmness wash over you, that is not influenced by a substance. I think if you're not doing that and you have this calm wash over you and, you feel really good, like if you're listening to a song, or you're in nature, like, and you just feel this like calmness and this bliss, that's likely your soul. Your soul is enjoying whatever you're doing there. And it's really important to pay attention to. You've done something for yourself, or that is in tune with spirit. And so now spirit is presenting itself to you. It's like you've called upon, and you can feel that. You feel that connection. For me, since I was little, I love singing. I love to sing. I don't do it as much anymore. But when I listen to music growing up, even till this day, if there is a song that really speaks to me, or I watch live performances of other people singing that are really just like in it, like I get goosebumps, I get chills. I'm very connected to that aspect of people who are so connected. It's less about just listening to music and people performing, but when I can feel even their energy and their connection to the music, when they're able to present that to me, like that, I feel that. Like that is something, it is speaking to my soul. Like when people say that is what they mean. Like the things that give goosebumps, the things that really just light you up. Tune into that. That's really valuable information. It's really important. What is that for you? So lastly, let's talk about how you can strengthen each. So we talked about emotions, getting to know yourself in that way, which I think ultimately is going to increase your spirit connection. It will also bring down some physical symptoms, I think, too. Definitely check out that How We Feel app. That's going to be really important. Another way is, there's a lot of research that says to go outside, touch some grass. And it doesn't say to touch grass, but it does say to get outside, to be connected with nature. That's a really good way to connect to spirit. At the end of the day, we are these living beings. There's so much life outside in nature. So go touch some grass. Meditation, I think, is good for all three. Meditation is going to tackle all three, whether that's just deep breathing, grounding exercise, tuning into your five senses in a moment to slow you down. It's going to calm your nervous system. It's going to quiet your thoughts. The point in the meditation is to not to just be blank in the mind. It is to allow the thoughts to pass and not be attached to them, and to come back to your breath, to the moment, to be present. That is what it is. It is not to just shut your mind off. And so you have this allowance to just recognize your thoughts and just say, hey, yeah, they are really just thoughts. I don't have to hold on to that. I don't have to obsess over that. I'm just going to let it go. I'm not attaching to the thought. Great for your mind, great for the body. It's going to bring down that nervous system, and you're connecting to the soul. You're allowing for spirit to come up and be present with you. Being in the present moment is very powerful. It just gives you an opportunity to exist. Okay, so another way to strengthen the body and soul kind of connection, I would even argue mind, but yoga is really great for that. I would argue, truthfully, that physical exercise is going to be great for anything. I don't think it just has to be yoga. I think yoga is meditation and movement. So I think that's why yoga is the first thing that comes to mind for people. But I think that honestly, to connect to soul, and this is why I made such an important point about finding what nourishes you and paying attention to it. Anything that puts you in a flow state, or just like you're fully present in things that you can be fully present in without effort. That is a good way to connect to the soul. Whether that be, for some people, it can be writing music. For some people, it could be journaling. Anything that you can do that brings you into a flow state. For some people, running is like they really get into a flow, they feel connected, and it could really be a mind, body, spirit connection. I think that type of thing is really important. So find what nourishes you, what allows you to be present. So my reflection question for you today is, what do you think you're most in tune with? Is it your mind? Is it your body? Is it your soul? How do they interact? How do you notice them interact? Think of an experience that you've had, something like that. Comment down below what you thought of this, your thoughts of the episode. Like, comment, subscribe. It helps a lot more than you know. We are available anywhere you listen to your podcast. We have moved from one YouTube channel to the next, so all of Self-Indulgent podcast episodes will be on my YouTube channel, Raya Says, RIYAHSAYS. All of the podcast episodes will be there. We're currently moving them all over there from our old YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed and intentional week.